May 16th meeting of the Conestoga Valley Board of School Directors. Would the secretary please report attendance?
All directors present.
We have a quorum, and also in attendance are the superintendent and administrative cabinet. Will you please join me in the pledge to the flag?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The board welcomes those in attendance as well as those that are joining us online. This is the second meeting of the month where most official votes are taken, many of which are listed on the consent agenda, which includes most items which are routine or have been discussed at our work session last week. Details of all items, related public documents, as well as minutes of past meetings are available on the district website and the posted agenda. Our meetings observe the requirements of the school code, legislative directives, the original Act 89 Sunshine Law, all subsequent amendments, judicial rulings, and our district policies to the best of our understanding and ability. Details of all items related to public documents as well as minutes of past meetings are available on the district website and the posted agenda. At this point, I would take a motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
And I'll take a voice vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or abstaining? If not, the agenda is approved. Our first issue is board commendations. This is an opportunity for the board to recognize exceptional achievements of staff and students. Details available are attached to the agenda on the district website. That's the wrong one. And it is with special pride that the board presents an especially long list this month. So sit back. A big thank you to Sarah O, Administrative Assistant for Elementary Ed, and Lori Groff, Administrative Assistant for Federal Programs, who covered for 2 extended vacancies on the administrative payroll. Extended vacancy in the Administrative Assistance team, and to Adele Hunsinger, Director of Finance, and Joanne Dickel, Payroll Specialist, as they covered the open payroll position. For all 4 individuals picked up extra duties while maintaining a high level of performance for their own assignments. Congratulations to Conestoga Valley High School junior Mary Ireland, who can boast that her work is on display in New York City. Mary submitted fan art for Broadway musical Beetlejuice, and her artwork was selected to be a part of a mural outside the Marquee Theater. 3 Conestoga Valley High School students participated in a Teleprep Startup Pitch Night on April 28th, and 2 of those students teamed up to capture first place. Emily Buckwaller, Jonathan Chan, and Micah Aldridge competed in the event. Over 12 weeks, scholars from CV and other Atolo Prep partner schools learned how to identify a problem, create solutions, and develop the solution. John and Micah teamed up and created a startup called Navden, an NFT, which I have no idea what that is. Marketplace where users can buy and sell digital art, contracts, and services. Their idea took first place, and the 2 were awarded $5,000 to invest in their startup. If you want to invest, there you go. Congratulations to Conestoga Valley High School junior Caitlin Williams, as she was named a Skills USA State Officer. Skills USA is a national student organization that develops employability, participatory, and leadership skills to complement the occupational skills developed by students in technical education classrooms or work-based learning site. Caitlin will be a senior in 2022-23 in the Lancaster County CTC Intro to Healthcare program. Congratulations to the Gerald G. Huskin Middle School students of the month for April. 7th grade, Olivia Wolf, Alenia Gonzalez, Mia Wenger, Mylan Garcia Paredes, Riley Heller, and Alina Whittington. In 8th grade, Holly Nosados, Connor High, Ella Cheek, Chase Wolf, Colson Erb, and Olivia Ship. Congratulations to the CV High School boys and girls volleyball teams as they were recognized with a certificate of recognition from the Side Out Foundation for hosting 6 years of Dig Pink, a volleyball event for coaches, athletes, parents, and communities to fundraise for metastatic breast cancer research and treatment through the Side Out Foundation. Congratulations to the following CV High School juniors for graduating from their respective Lancaster Chamber of Commerce mentorship programs. The girls who completed were Marissa Heisey, Carly Kamizak, Veronica Santamaria, Olivia Sowell, Joyce William, and Sophia Weiss. The boys included Jonathan Cohn, Connor Nafsinger, David Petto, Yasek Bogali, Mason Justin Hutchinson, and Edison Stauffer. Congratulations to the following students who placed at the PA Technology Student Association State Conference. Sidney Castagna, Arian Shaw, and Josh Yoder, first place. Nolan Armstrong, Emily Buckwater, Marisa Heisey, Taylor Horse, Connor Nafsinger, and Abby Phillips, first place. B. Hollister and Arian Shaw, second place. Nora Castanga, Leah Hilton, Lexi Slezak, Tyler Stoltzfus, Elizabeth Talley, and Evan Zimmerman, second place. Dominic Santamaria and Josh Yoder, third place. Riley Rybczynski, fourth place. Sidney Castagna and Jane Younger, fifth place. Connor Naftiger, fifth place. Anna Kaufman, fifth place. B. Hollister, Gavin Massey, and Arian Shaw, seventh place. Gavin Massey and Arian Shaw, also in eighth place. Arian Shaw in eighth place. Marissa Heisey and Abby Phillips, 10th place, and Anna Kaufman, 10th place. Congratulations to 3 members of the CV Schools Lacrosse team as they were named 2022 Lancaster Lebanon League All-Stars. Junior goalie Jamie Handwerger was named to the second team. Michaelia Rainier was named an honorable mention in defense. In addition, senior Anika Brederman was named an all-academic player, a designation given to the senior with either the highest GPA or class rank on each team in the league. Kudos to the CV and Manheim Township Junior High track and field teams as they join forces to raise money for Off the Streets, a program that helps families and individuals in Lancaster get off the streets and into permanent housing. The combined efforts raised almost $1,000 for the program. Thank you for a job well done to CV Assistant Groundskeeper Patrick Opinaldo as he was recognized by the CV softball team. Coach Ryan stated that CV softball field was the best looking field for home games in the state due to Patrick's attention to detail and responsiveness. That's the best part of the meeting, folks.
Take some water. That was
Superintendent's comments, Dr. Zig.
And then the second best part is coming up as well, because we have some new hires we want to introduce. You'll notice a slight change on the consent agenda tonight, since the majority of the board is new and many may not be aware of the history or procedures for the tax collection authority and the amusement tax. We have moved them to action discussion. We also added a new professional hire to the superintendent's report. Eric Whelan will be joining the high school, and I'll introduce him in just a bit. We continue to hire new professionals to join the CV family, and I'm excited to introduce a number of them today so that you can put a face to a name for these future Buckskins. Starting off at elementary, Natalie Blanton. I had the opportunity to observe Natalie as she was a student teacher with Mr. Bullington in Brownstown's music classroom and watched her conduct a group of high school students at the annual spring concert. Natalie exudes a positivity, always smiling, singing, and encouraging, and the students reflect that positivity in return no matter if they are at the elementary or secondary level. Natalie is finishing up her bachelor's degree in music education with the concentration in vocal studies from Elizabethtown College before she'll be joining the Fritz Elementary family as their music teacher. So board, if you're ever having a rough day, next year make sure you stop in Natalie's classroom when we do a building visit at Fritz. Natalie, welcome to CV officially. Welcome. If you ask her to sing, I'm sure she can sing
Would you like to
something.
sing for us?
Would you like to sing anything?
Hey.
Okay. We'll go over to the middle school now. Eric Hollinger. Eric will be joining Dr. Metzinger's administrative team as the middle school's new assistant principal. He's a CV graduate and earned his bachelor's degree in K-12 Health and Physical Education from Lancaster Bible College. He's completing his master's degree this summer in educational leadership from California University of Pennsylvania. Eric brings with him 10 years of educational experience in Lancaster Mennonite School and the School District of Lancaster. Welcome back to CV, Eric.
Thank you, appreciate it. I'm excited for the opportunity as a graduate of the district to come in and work with the team that's in place and continue the education that CV's been doing for a long time and the team that's there. So appreciate the opportunity and looking forward to it. Thank you.
Next to the middle school is Jenna Mabel. Jenna is joining the middle school team as its social worker, home and school visitor. Jenna earned her bachelor's degree from Westchester University and her master's in social work from Temple University. Jenna was an outpatient mental health therapist and employee assistance program assessor, as well as a school social worker at Lancaster Lebanon IU and Cornwall Lebanon School District. Her experience and student-centered focus fits perfectly with our middle school teaming model. Jenna, welcome to CV.
Happy to be a buckskin.
Proud to have you. All right, now we've got a few high school educators. Carrie Briggs. Carrie is a non-traditional family and consumer science teacher, to say the least. She earned her bachelor's degree in elementary education from Millersville and her master's degree in science education from Lebanon Valley College. She has taught grades K through 8 in both public and non-public schools. She was even the senior STEM educator and science fair coordinator at the North Museum of Nature and Science. You may remember all of our students won all those awards at the North Museum. She looks at family and consumer science as just an applied STEM course where you experiment with food. So we look forward to visiting Carrie's classroom in the fall. Carrie?
I'm excited to be here.
Courtney Deaver. Courtney will be joining the pupil services team at the high school as their school psychologist. Courtney earned both her bachelor's degree and master's degree in psychology with a concentration in school psychology from Millersville University. She served as a school psychology intern with IU 13 before gaining practical experience as a school psychologist with the school district of Lancaster. We look forward to the positive impact that she will provide our high school students. Welcome to CV, Courtney.
Thank you for the opportunity.
All right, Eric Whelan. Eric is excited to join our special education team at the high school in the Foundation's Learning Support Classroom, especially since we just made his offer today, like earlier this afternoon. I called him up and said, hey, do you want a job? And he said, yes. So thank you for saying yes, Eric. Eric earned his bachelor's degree in secondary education social studies from Slippery Rock and his master's degree in special education from Eastern University. Eric brings with him experience as an instructional assistant and as a teacher in the Philadelphia School District and most recently at Chester County IU. We look forward to the positive difference Eric will make for our students. Welcome to CV, Eric.
Thanks for having me. Good to be here.
We are glad you're here. Board, on a separate note, we have chosen not to make a presentation for our English language arts resources this evening. But before I continue, I want to acknowledge and thank the more than 20 English language arts teachers who spent countless hours researching best practices and having honest debates about resources that will help our children read. Although a vetting process was put in place that would address certain titles, and although we have a well-established procedure for individual families to opt out of specific lessons, the divisiveness that exists would take the focus off the research-based science of reading, which is the accepted understanding of how children truly do learn how to read, and instead focus on a limited number of reading titles. As such, I am charging the English Language Arts Committee to go back and work on curriculum guides that follow the science of reading and use texts that continue to reflect this diverse community. That's all I have for tonight, Madam President.
Thank you. Is there any correspondence from Secretary? None. Do any board members have any comments about recent activities in the district?
I do. I am a Girls on the Run running buddy, and we had from Smoketown, and we had our practice race last Tuesday. And the girls were thrilled that some of the teachers and staff from Smoketown came out to cheer us on. So it was really cool to see. They're super excited about that.
That's a great program. Any other comments? If not, we have a student report, Mrs. Upton and Mrs. Shetter. I would tell you who Mrs. Upton is, but it seems as if she has so many jobs here at CB, I can't keep track of them all.
You know, I actually just took off my keys Bob's now hanging out. More.
We appreciate you stepping up where you were needed.
Thank you, I appreciate it. So I'm the administrator for non-traditional learning and career readiness, K-12 for all the newbies. And I'm also the interim Leola principal at the moment, so CVVA is our virtual academy, and it's existed for quite a while, but we're really now at the point where we are making it a flexible learning style for any kids in the district that want something that's a little bit non-traditional. So my role with CVVA is essentially the principal for CVVA, and then we have Dory Shetter.
And I joined CVVA 2 years ago as a third grade instructor during the period of time when we had many students as part of CVVA. And this year I've been instructor for kindergarten through 5th grade, and another person was handling 6th grade. So, and I want to thank you for the opportunity. I was just approved as coordinator for next year. So working with Mrs. Upton, we're hoping to grow the program, and we're just very excited about what we see both in the Learning Center and happening at home. So the pictures that are included, you'll see, we just put together a little video presentation. You'll see some of the kids working in their home environments, and then you'll see some of them working in our in-person learning center. And we focus on, obviously, their academics, but also their social and emotional needs.
We have about 250 students who are taking advantage of our virtual program this year in various capacities, from singleton classes that they're taking so that they can become NCAA eligible or participate in internships that they wouldn't otherwise be able to participate in because of scheduling, to full-time CVVA students. And since they're virtual kids, we figured a virtual presentation would make sense, so. if you wouldn't mind. That's actually our new logo that was created by 3 students in Nick Howard's project design course.
I think anytime we see students that are smiling and learning at the same time, you know we're doing something right. But what I like about this most is that we've been able to take the mystique out of virtual learning, and these kids still have a chance to meet each other and feel like a learning community, which I think is really important. And that it's family friendly, which is an aspect of it I don't know if I appreciated as much before.
It was really wonderful to see the kids collaborating on some tough content.
Yes.
So for example, you might have seen a few of the kids working with fractions, and they're filling the tables with how do I make equivalent fractions and how do I multiply. And once it caught on, they were struggling. Once it caught on, they all caught on. So you still see those real sparks flying around the room like you do in a traditional classroom on a really good day.
Well, I think cooperative learning is important, and that's what the old-fashioned early virtual learning was. And these kids are not isolated in any way, and they learn from each other, which is exactly what we want them to do. Thank you. And thank the teachers, because I know it took a lot of readjusting in the pedagogy to go in virtual. But when done well, it works really good.
We're only gonna grow.
Any questions from board members? Everybody's
Thank you.
happy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
This is the point in the meeting where we have room for public comments. Pending revision of policy 903, we no longer require presenters to state their address. Is there anyone that would like to address the board this evening on an item from the agenda? Yes, would you please state your name for the record?
Christina Graham.
And are you a district resident, parent, guardian, business, or property taxpayer?
I'm a parent.
Do you speak for yourself, or do you represent a group?
Myself.
And you're given 5 minutes according to our policy.
Okay, I just wanted to thank you for going back to the drawing board. I know that's not on the agenda to speak about tonight on the curriculum. But I also wanted to just ask, I had heard that there's a policy, that this has always been the policy, the way that you go about getting the curriculum approved. And there are some parents, I believe, that I've heard talking, and myself and my husband, it would be nice to have a little more transparency. Because I felt like this kind of went under the radar for the parents, and we would just like to know when things are going to be looked at, what you're looking at, and when it's going to be approved or when it's going to be voted on to be approved. If we could just maybe change that policy, if this is something that has always been this way, maybe it's not working anymore. Because I think a lot of the parents are feeling like we're not feeling like the district is being transparent in this area. It's just something to consider. That's all I really wanted to say tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
It's a policy of the board to recognize appropriate public comment, while recognizing this is not a public forum nor a Q&A session. As such, if you will be sure to leave your name and contact with the board secretary and appropriate administrator, we'll get in touch with you to discuss this. Is there anyone else who would like to address the board? Is there anyone from CVEA?
Nothing tonight, thanks.
Any other employee groups? If not, we have a very lengthy consent agenda. Several of the items on this actually require five votes of the board. Are there any concerns about the consent agenda, or can I have a motion?
I move we approve the consent agenda as presented.
Okay, we have a motion to approve items A through U. Is there a second?
Second.
Could we please have a roll call vote?
Mr. Benigno? Mr. Talley?
Aye.
Mrs. Kapka?
Aye.
Mr. Dillman?
Aye.
Mr. Gensel?
Aye.
Mr. Hurst?
Aye.
Dr. Martin?
Aye.
Ms. Trowbridge?
Aye.
And Mrs. Crawl?
Aye.
New teachers, you're official.
Did we miss someone?
No, I don't think you missed it. I forget. Wait. Hannah Strobe? I missed you.
It's okay.
Who's that? Stand up, please.
No.
There you go. What happened?
We've already approved Hannah, so we're gonna introduce her. She's finishing up her student teaching here at CV High School. She'll be earning her bachelor's degree in English education with a minor in English as a second language, linguistics from Millersville University.
Nice.
Hannah's also taking advantage of the Act 86 certifications. You know, we get those approved at the end, which allows her to substitute teach while she's student teaching. She'll be shifting the application of empathy and caring that she currently uses for the residents of Nipponose Valley Village Assisted Living Facility is where she's working in her part-time when she's not student teaching and doing everything else. And she'll be joining our 7th grade team teaching ELA to our students at our new middle school. So, and I apologize and welcome.
Thank you. It's nice to meet you all. I'm very excited to be staying at CV officially. Thank you all.
I'm not sure what the same as it used to back in the day, but I'm glad to see someone else is still taking linguistics courses. I thought I was the last one on earth to do that.
It's good stuff.
Dr. Kozer, we would now accept your math resource
Wait, you gotta do
presentation.
finance update.
What did oh, yes. Well, I really don't want to listen to this.
Well, come on,
It's good stuff.
You don't
let's
know.
spice it up this time.
Yeah. Maybe we could use the one new teacher to sing your presentation.
That will be fine by me,
Yeah. that was-
because I certainly can't sing. I feel like somebody's gonna be an expert in bond finance till we're all said and done. I've done this presentation, I feel like 10 times in the last few months. So I don't wanna take too much of your time, but we've, since I was here last, we locked in the interest rates on the last bit of the financing. So if you wanna just, we can briefly talk about the interest rate chart. Since I was here, interest rates have continued to move higher. If you've been following the news, that's a result of the Federal Reserve raising short-term rates, but also the inflation fears for what's to come will affect the long end of the curve. So we've just continued to see the trend of higher rates over the last 30 days. Next slide, please. So again, just a quick refresher, this is now the summary of all of the district's various pieces of its debt. You can see that in column 10, the gross debt service run rate is about $7.6 million a year before any reimbursement. It runs out to the bottom of the page, 2051. We're gonna talk about it in a second. When I was here last, we thought the debt was going to go out one more additional year. Because of interest rates at the time we priced the bonds, we were able to shorten it by 1 year. So if you wanna go to the next slide. And I believe if you guys all have this, access to this, you'll keep this, I'm sure, for future reference. This slide simply takes the prior gross debt service and factors in the little bit of reimbursement that you receive from the Department of Education. So you can see, again, the far right-hand column, you don't receive much reimbursement. So the run rate here is about 7.6 million as well. So the most important page in the handout, this is now finalized. We've shared this slide with you several times. We entered the market for a $44 million project fund deposit. Some of the key items on the left side of the page, the yield on this most recent 44 million was 4.16%. If you look at the blue at the bottom, I'm gonna jump ahead. So the overall yield, blended yield of the 2018, 19, 21 A and B and 2022 that we just did is 3.2%. And so you've locked in 140-ish million at 3.2%. That's pretty darn good, historically speaking. We had some that was in the 2s. We now had one that was in the 4s. You blend them all together, and we have an average rate for a very significant amount of debt over the last 5 years for all the things that you wanted to accomplish at a fantastic rate. So a lot of planning went into that. There's a lot of folks that maybe aren't even here anymore that were on prior boards. But we're kind of seeing it through till the end. There's a little bit more to come over the next couple of years, but this is a fantastic result. Another thing I'll point out here in the bullet points, because interest rates have gone up, typically a issue of this size, 44 million, and of this term going out to 2061, comes with a 10-year call or an 8-year call. That's your ability to prepay or refinance the debt in the future. Now that interest rates have gone up, people are less concerned with call features. They're happy to be getting 4% yield. So they were willing to accept a 6-year call. And so that really gives you an added level of flexibility down the road. It's kind of unheard of in the world of larger issues, $40 to $50 million issues. So that was something that we were pretty happy with. Column 9, probably the most important column on this page, is the millage impact that you'll see over the next 4 years. We've levelized the impact to be 0.13 mils each of the next 4 years for a total of 0.52 at the bottom lower right-hand corner of that sheet. So there's a number of things that are going to come into play as we phase in those mills in the future budgets. Just to remind everybody, that's not set in stone. The folks on the finance team have the ability to, if we have a tough budget in one area, that we can push that out. We can accelerate it if you have a budget that's not as tough in any given year. That's, under Act 1. Thank you, Idette. That's good comment. Under Act 1, we understand that's tough. But if there's opportunities to move things around, you do have that flexibility. And for the first time since we've been doing these issues for you in the last couple of years, you're now able to put that money in the bank and actually earn a return. And so we've estimated interest earnings here to be over $1 million over the next couple of years as you spend those dollars on projects. We'll have sale of assets coming up. We'll have cash that we've left until the end to help with that flexibility. So again, a really good snapshot of the plan of finance kind of coming together at the end here. Again, there's a little bit more to do, but this is a really good, looking back on it now, really good history of your debt. One more page, actually 2 more pages, sorry. This is just a refresh now of the last piece to the puzzle, should you choose to do the projects at the high school and the auditorium. That's estimated at the moment to be roughly $15 million of additional borrowing. Again, that's a moving target depending on how much cash, stimulus money you throw into the pot. And, when you get to the, I know you're not even at the drawing board with those projects, but should you want to complete those projects, we put this millage study in there so you can see what the impact of that would look like at today's rates. One more slide. We always like to show a comparison of other deals that were in the market the week that you brought your issue. On the left side is the $45.5 million for Conestoga Valley School District, AA rated by S&P. Another bright spot for the overall finance picture is your great rating. And Dallastown School District was in the marketplace for $28 million at the same time. But you can see that it was a little different structure, and they were forced to an 8-year call. Again, the big factor, I think, in favor of the Conestoga Valley bonds that were issued is that shorter call. The Dallastown bonds were issued as premium bonds. It was a little different structure, again, because it was much more weighted in the 2036 to 2041 maturities, where yours was really weighted till the 2051 maturity. So a good result overall compared to other deals in the marketplace that week. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Not having dealt in finance at this rate, what is a call?
Great question. So a call is your ability to refinance. And so when you issue these bonds, someone who buys them says, I don't want to give up my 4% interest rate for some period of time. I want to keep it in my portfolio.
Okay.
They have the right to hold that bond for 6 years before we have the right to take it away from them. So that's called call protection. So some markets would require a 10-year call where that bondholder says, nope, I like this rate, I'm going to hold it for 10 years. So the shorter the call, that's to your advantage. The longer the call is to the advantage of the buyer. So you want the shortest call provision and the lowest interest rate.
Okay.
Yep. Good question.
And when you say run rate?
Nomenclature. So run rate is simply the annual payment. If you look at the second column from the left on this page, it's just the payments are roughly equal at $7.6 million a year. We call that the run rate for debt service. And so in Pennsylvania, under the Local Government Unit Debt Act, you have to have level or declining debt over time when you factor in all the component parts of your debt. You have a lot of different pieces, but when you pull them all together, they have to be level or declining. So that's your run rate for debt service at $7.6 million. Another good question. I use these terms, we use them every day, and you guys don't hear them all the time, so good questions.
Any other questions?
You won't see me for a while, unfortunately. Unless you'd like me to come back for the annual State of the Union.
Offhand, I can't think of any good reason. But if we miss you, we'll let you know.
Understood.
But it's a public meeting, so you're welcome to show up.
And as a taxpayer, yes, for sure.
Absolutely. Okay,
Thank you.
We appreciate it.
Yep, you got it. And if any questions come up, we'll.
Now,
we're happy to
Mrs.
ask.
Tozer.
We're not gonna do $44 million in base 10 cubes tonight, just so you know, but who's ready for some elementary math this evening? Good evening. I am very excited to be here with you tonight to share with you our elementary math resource selection recommendation from our elementary math committee. So I want to start by just giving you some context for our decision this evening. As you know, as you're well aware of, we've embarked on a new 3-year comprehensive plan. And one of those big priority areas, priority number 2, the CV instructional model, outlines some of the core components that go into teaching and learning in our classrooms. And so that first area there, the multi-tiered system of support, MTSS, that really was one of the driving forces behind moving into our resource selection in elementary math at this time. We know that we need to have a really strong core resource at the heart of instruction in all of our classrooms. And so we were moving on this prior to COVID. We actually had our math committee together. They were researching programs. They were at a point where they were ready to bring a proposal to the table. And then this little tiny thing called COVID-19 hit and everything was put on pause. Our current program, Math in Focus, was adopted in 2013. And so coming into the district this year, this was one of the biggest pieces of feedback that I heard. Hey, we need to restart that math curriculum, math resource committee. We need to get that moving again. And so that's what we did this spring. It helps that we also have the ESSER funds right now, those big one-time spend, get what you need in your system, that we're able to make this purchase at this point in time as well. Other pieces of context to consider. You've heard a lot about learning loss. You've heard a lot about accelerating learning post-pandemic and really identifying where those gaps might have been for our students. And so this was another force behind looking at a program, a resource that was really going to be able to elevate student learning in mathematics. And we know that we do that. We accelerate learning for students through 2 things. 1 is through student engagement, and 2 is through opportunities to really engage in deeper learning for all of our students. So I'm going to share a little bit about our process and recommendations through those 2 lenses, student engagement and deeper learning. We are here, we are at the red location pin right now. When we think about a multi-tiered system of support, an MTSS framework, the core resource, it is the primary tool that teachers use. They need to have that in their toolkit in order to make sure that all of our students have access to high quality instruction in the classroom. And so really, this is the component that is critical to have across all of our elementary schools, and to make sure that it aligns to the profile of a CV learner and the CV instructional model. So I'll tell you a little bit about our resource selection process, and I am very, very happy to introduce Ashley McDonough tonight. Ashley is one of our math specialists at Fritz. She's here as well if the board has any really specific questions about the program stepping stones that we're going to talk about. But our math specialists have done just a tremendous job of working with the committee to help facilitate this process, to gather the feedback. They took hundreds of comment cards from teachers, Google Forms, from vendor presentations, from parents, pulled together, summarized, synthesized that information to really be able to move this work forward. And so I would absolutely, I need to give that special thanks to that group because they have been advocates of this process throughout. So overall, we had about 19 teachers that were on the math committee, 20 hours for each of them. We did some deep dives into 3 big programs. We had resource selection criteria that we had the committee members look for, provide feedback. We had vendor presentations, parent representation, awesome parent input at those vendor presentations, great questions our family members were asking. And altogether, over 380 hours of teacher resource and expertise in this process. In addition, we met with our school, our district leaders. We made sure they were aware and that they understood each of the programs we were looking at, got their feedback. And then we did open up about a week to 2 weeks, up to 10 days for open houses at each of the schools where the materials were set out for teachers, and all teachers in the school could come down, go through the materials, and make comments and recommendations as well. So that was our process to really jumpstart, restart, post-pandemic, the work that the math committee had already started putting in place. Giving you just that glimpse into what we call that instructional system, right? That tier one, what goes into an instructional system? These are the pieces that we look at when we map out our system. We start with those PA core standards. So the resources that we're looking at have to match up and align to the Pennsylvania core standards for math. From there, you've got these 3 parts of an instructional system that work together so closely. Your curriculum guides, your documents that really outline how the standards and the assessments connect to the resource. They really give the teachers guidance on what lessons are taught in classrooms, right? You've got the resource that interacts right there with those curriculum guides, and then our assessments that are lined up to make sure that our students really are demonstrating the outcomes and the learning that we would like to see in mathematics. So we are at that start, we're at that resource part of our instructional system. We did 3 deep dives as a committee. We took a look at these 3 programs. All of them come highly rated on Ed Reports, which is one of the resources that we really look at to evaluate just initial glance at usability, at alignment to standards, focus, coherence. So we started with math expressions, and math expressions had a lot of strengths to it. Our teachers felt that the teacher materials were easy to use. They felt that there were opportunities for problem solving, and a lot of differentiation was built right into the lessons. But the big issue that we heard the most consistently from all of our teachers, but then also in our math committee, was that math expressions was missing CV's #1 instructional approach to teaching mathematics, and that's that CRA. We're going to talk a little bit about that when I get into stepping stones. That's why I brought some examples to share with you of what that process is. So math expressions, big gap in how we go about teaching math. Our teachers would need to build that into the resources versus it's already in there. In addition, math expressions is operating off of a 2018 edition. We know that there's a whole new revamp coming in 2024, and so for us to purchase that now and implement over a 2-year window, at the end of that 2-year window, the resource gets revamped, and we're already kind of behind the 8 ball there. So those were 2 of our big concerns around math expressions. Bridges in mathematics, again, strong program. The committee saw a lot of strengths, but the biggest concern there was we felt that Bridges' approach to teaching math, it's a pretty significant shift. And in a time when our teachers are coming off of the pandemic, they've been through a lot of changes, a lot of adjustments, a lot of pivots over the last couple of years. This particular program would have required a shift in their practice that we felt would have been almost a giant step, a little bit too far. And so the professional learning required to go along with implementation of Bridges may have extended past the 18-month to 2-year window that we're looking at to get the math resource up and running in classrooms. So that came out as our biggest challenge there. So that led us to the Origo stepping stones, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about Origo and what led the committee to move in this direction. So as I said, we're viewing this through those 2 lenses. How do we accelerate learning? How do we move students post-pandemic? 1, through deeper learning, right? 2, through student engagement. So one of the ways that Stepping Stones really promotes deeper learning is through the rigorous content that is in the program. And as I said, that first and foremost, our Conestoga Valley teachers have been working with the math specialists for quite some time now on developing this sequence for math instruction, moving from concrete to representational to abstract. And what that means is, we're starting with manipulatives always. We have something concrete that students are playing with, that they're actually moving, touching, place value. Show me 8. They're moving 8 of these ones cubes, right? When we go into the representational then, now we're looking at pictures, diagrams, drawings. So it's one step up, right? This is one thing to count 8. This is the next step in that learning progression, to be able to look at the picture of it. And this is 8, right? And then it moves into that abstract stage. And so this is where we get into the symbols. This is where we get into word representation, right? So now we're talking about 8. We're gonna actually use the numbers, no manipulatives, no pictures. We'll just put the 8 up there. Or we're just going to the word 8, right? You're moving into more of that abstract work. Our math specialists have been working, especially at the primary level, on taking the current resource and building in ways for teachers to go through this learning sequence. Stepping stones, it's how the whole program is designed. They've designed all of the lessons to automatically go through that CRA sequence. And so that was a huge plus for the team, is that instead of adjusting the resource to fit our model, the resource is perfectly aligned to the model and the training and the professional learning that our teachers have been engaged with over the past couple of years. So hands down, the CRA piece was the biggest win for Stepping Stones. In addition to that, multiple opportunities throughout for our students to engage in the 8 mathematical practices that have been identified nationally as part of the Common Core, as part of the Pennsylvania Core Standards, things like talking about math, things like using their tools and manipulatives, practices that we know encourage students to think and talk like mathematicians. The professional learning side of Stepping Stones is absolutely exceptional. So Origo, the company, the publisher, actually started as an elementary education math professional development company. That's how they started. They had no interest in writing materials. 1995, they started the company. They were out coaching in schools, providing professional development and teaching math, and they realized that they could only get their teachers so far without the right resource, right? Go back to that MTSS. We need that tool. That tool is so important. And so they ended up writing their own program based on the professional development they were doing. And so the professional learning options with this particular program are exceptional. From coaching support that they would offer us to, they have an amazing series of videos. They're quick, they're fast. You can be prepping for your lesson for that day. Click on a 2-minute refresh of the concept. What was that? How did I teach that last year? Let me watch this 2-minute video really quick and refresh where I am. So the tools that are embedded for teachers are very, very high quality for professional learning. The other piece with our rigor and stepping stones is this concept of spaced learning, and this goes back again to this post-pandemic, this idea of accelerating learning. Spaced learning is where they take a big concept like place value, and instead of trying to do one unit on place value, and at the end of that unit, if you haven't mastered all of those targets in place value, oh well, we're moving on to fractions tomorrow. So I'm sorry for that, right? Their approach is to space these concepts out. So they take place value, they break it down into smaller chunks, smaller blocks of learning, and you're being asked to really practice and master one piece at a time. They move on. The next unit, that might be revisited in a practice section of a lesson. It might not be the focus, but it's there. We come back to it throughout the year. And so students have the opportunity to keep building and connecting their existing knowledge into the next piece of that particular concept or skill. According to Stepping Stones and some of the research that they have done on the program, this has been one of the pieces that really reduces the likelihood of students forgetting content across a year, which is critical right now. And then that last piece is the math discourse. And what that means is just a lot of opportunities to talk about math, whether it's talking about your approach to a problem, talking about how you're using one of the tools or the manipulatives, that math discourse, math discussion, it's built right into the lessons. And it's really one of their core values as a company. They believe that learning is a social interaction, and absolutely that's backed by a lot of research on how people learn. It goes back to, we were talking about collaborative learning early. I was smiling because that is actually one of their mission statements of the company, is that it's a fundamental belief that learning is a social process that requires language and discourse. And so we see that in the lessons. So in addition to the deeper learning piece, that other strategy that we know is going to accelerate learning is student engagement, and students really being all in when it comes to the math activities and the math learning that's happening in their classroom. And so Origo, Stepping Stones, they do this through their relevance to students. Again, the use of manipulatives being just a central critical component throughout all grade levels, connecting the problem solving into real world everyday life. I was looking through some of the materials recently, and one of the problem solving pieces was they're planning a summer trip or a summer vacation, and they're integrating a lot of different math concepts into building out their itinerary and their travel plan and applying it to things that are of high interest to students and that would be relevant to their lives. And then that last piece, and again, similar to the professional learning, head and shoulders above other programs that we saw are the comprehensive parent and caregiver resources. There is an entire portal for parents where I was, again, going through it this week, and you can click down to the lesson to see the target. They have videos on there that show parents their strategies. So this is what your kiddos, how they're approaching addition. Here's the video from today's lesson for you so that you can watch what we did in class that day and know how to support the student in their practice at home. Very, very comprehensive resources for families on their resource pages as well. So we want to give our parents and caregivers an opportunity for feedback. We heard tonight the importance of transparency, the importance of parents having the opportunity to see what is going to be voted on. And so we are going to open up a 30-day resource review window where starting tomorrow to June 17th, we'll transform a table back here in the boardroom into the Stepping Stones display, and families can have the opportunity to make an appointment, come on in, take a look at the resources. We'll have a feedback forum there that we will share directly with the school board and with our math resource committee members as well. So that information will go up on our district website tomorrow morning, where they'll have the opportunity to schedule through our administrative assistant here at the district office. Again, gathering that feedback, getting input, and really giving people a chance to see before we ask for the board to vote at the June 20th board meeting. As far as implementation goes, we are looking at, upon board approval in June, we would be looking at the first trimester to work with our teacher teams to develop those math plans and resources. So we have told the teachers, start your year the way you normally would. We want to take our time. We want to make sure that we have those curriculum guides started for you the first time that you use this resource in your classrooms. And then we would look at our K-5 teachers beginning to use the resource in second semester this fall. And we will be convening that math curriculum writing team throughout the school year. So that's our very broad implementation plan. Origo comes with a detailed implementation science plan that really dots every I and crosses every T when you're looking at a large-scale implementation such as one in Conestoga Valley across 4 schools. So high-level overview for you this evening, but wanted to provide you with that context and information. Any questions?
Quick question, you said what was the other math expressions or whatever was 2018 version, what's this Stepping Stones?
2022.
Okay, so it would be essentially.
This is the 2.0 version. Yep, just came out, 2022.
Okay.
Now, our current one, you said 2013, has there been an update on that one since, or we're working on a decade-old program?
Math and Focus.
There have been updates, but that was the curriculum that we purchased. So we would have had, it would have been another adoption, like we would have chosen Math in Focus to adopt again. So we had purchased it for that amount of time, and it would be repurchasing the new updated program.
Okay. And just out of curiosity, where is our current one falling short? Like, what is it? This, your more textile, that where it's falling short?
Actually, what I have heard the most from teachers this year is that it is not fully aligned to the Pennsylvania standards. And so they are doing a lot of work lining up what the concepts and skills are in the program to make sure that we don't have any gaps in the grade level standards and eligible content.
When the parents sign up, will they be able to see a preview of that portal? If they come in to see, is there a way to show them like a demo of that or something, just to see what that would look like?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
'Cause I know
Yeah,
that would
we
be
could have an iPad set up that would
Yeah,
go
something
right
like
to that.
That would be, I
It's-
think, a big interest to parents.
Fantastic.
For most of us that tried to understand when they switched to Common Core and we had no
Right.
idea what we were doing, I think that would go a long way too.
Especially if it's very easy and simple and they experience that firsthand,
Right.
then that removes barriers to using it.
It's a great idea.
Now, the higher level, 6 through 12, like, I guess more at the middle school, is there gonna be a hard turn for them to get into the math in the middle school, or is it kinda, like, are we gonna be looking at a program for them like this, you know what I'm saying?
I do, and I don't wanna speak for Dr. Mann on that one.
Oh, is like the math curriculum for the middle school is it in line with this, or are the kids gonna have to learn some concepts when they're getting into middle school math?
Right. We're gonna need to look at and review and update the secondary curriculum.
Okay, does this have a secondary curriculum, stepping
I don't
stones?
know that.
This
Okay.
goes through 6th grade.
What I like about this is what you said about the chance to master. My problem with most math curriculums has always been that math is cumulative. And if you only teach it and then move on before there's mastery, that child will never get better in math. That has always, sort of bothered me, that we allow them to move on when they have too soft a basis.
Mm-hmm.
And I assume that this preliminary process is what you've been doing with all curriculum, teacher committee.
Correct.
Concern we had earlier about, I wish, you're not the lady that, no.
No.
I didn't think so. I wish she would have stayed, so she could have seen how we, she asked, how do we do this? And who's involved? I wish she'd have been here to hear this, but we'll get a chance to tell her anyway.
Yes.
Do you, go ahead.
No, it is your turn, Brad.
Do you see any weaknesses or have any concerns with the curriculum?
The one area that the committee kept when we compiled all the forms was in formative assessment. So the day-to-day assessment pieces, they did feel that that was a piece we would need to strengthen internally, that we would need to really take a deep dive into the assessment component.
But you have no concerns taking that on?
No, I'd rather work on assessments. That's a fairly common practice in curriculum writing versus taking a resource and having to elevate all of the lessons and all of the units.
Sure.
The assessment piece also is presented differently in this program, where before you would teach, like Dr. Kozer said,
Yes.
you would teach place value and then you would have a big assessment at the end. But because you are teaching these concepts throughout the year, so your assessments are smaller. So when teachers first saw these, they were thinking that the assessments weren't big enough, weren't enough, instead of looking at, well, we're gonna assess that multiple times throughout the year and keep checking in on it. So I think it was just a different philosophy than teachers are used to.
I thought they did a really good job, those that were presenting at the forum, of explaining that piece, the space learning in particular. And they let me take kind of one of the schedules and how it looked like, and you can see the colors overlap as they go
Yes.
down, which shows that those continued touches throughout. And I think that's a really cool concept, and I like the visuals they had, so. And they mentioned the parent portal too there, and then also the ability for teachers to get those quick refreshers. Hopefully that takes some of their prep time off the
Yes.
table for them as well, so that they can be ready a little bit faster and more confident and comfortable with that. So I think there's some definite strengths there, which is cool.
I thought you were going to say they let you take one of the assessments. I was curious about your results.
That's the outcome.
No, because then they'd re-enroll me in like fourth grade math, and I'm not doing that
Yeah,
again.
that's true.
Thank you.
When's your timeline for vote?
Vote
Or
June
vote?
20th.
Okay. If you need to push it out to July, that's okay.
Mhm.
Okay. These tend to be a lightning rod in today's current environment. So I just want to make sure that everyone has a say. I'd probably maybe do more than just a web posting, but maybe send out an email, a communication to every parent, so that way no one can say, I didn't know, like the lady in the background there, and it's free, so it doesn't take much effort, even a flyer at home. We're making changes, come out and check out what it is.
Text lines or whatever.
What, even Dr. Z's, everyone gets your snow messages, so just want to make sure that, what I don't want to hear is,
Yep.
I didn't know.
Yep.
And I
Oh,
want to
you'll
be
hear
able to
that
say
anyway.
that, huh?
You'll hear that anyway.
You'll hear that, but I want to be able to say, where have you been?
You got it.
So, thank you.
Yep, absolutely.
Any other
Thanks, ladies.
questions or concerns?
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sean.
Phyllis, proposed budget.
Yeah, so we did the heavy lift on the proposed budget last week, so really tonight, as I had mentioned, it's just the resolution and the notice. So obviously, we do the resolution to approve first, and then we can notify everybody what the budget's gonna look like.
Which
And
one do you want to make?
The documents that you have attached, or just the PowerPoint and the 5-year projections that I shared last week, along with, as I had mentioned, we put the budget narrative together, which is sort of your Cliff Notes version, and then also the one up from the bottom, the PDE 2028. That's not a typo in the date, it's the PD 2028 is what PDE, what the Department of Education calls the form. It's the form number for the template that they have all districts use, so you can look at any district across the state in the same format. So you should have everything that you need at this point.
Any questions or concerns? Because we do have to take a vote this evening. Well, if there are none, I would need a motion to approve the resolution.
I move that we approve the resolution as presented.
Second.
Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Mr. Talley?
Aye.
Mrs. Kapka?
Aye.
Mr. Dillman?
Aye.
Mr. Gensel?
Aye.
Mr. Hurst?
Aye.
Dr. Martin?
Aye.
Ms. Trowbridge? Mr. Benigno?
Aye.
Mrs. Groff?
Having done that, we need to go through it again to actually approve the proposed budget. Could I have a motion?
I move that we approve the proposed budget.
Second.
We have a roll call vote
Sorry,
again,
who
please?
seconded?
Me, Mrs.
Thank you.
Dr. Martin.
Mrs. Kapka?
Aye.
Mr. Dillman?
Aye.
Mr. Gensel?
Aye.
Mr. Hurst?
Aye.
Dr. Martin?
Aye.
Ms. Trowbridge?
Aye.
Mr. Benigno?
Aye.
Mr. Talley?
Aye.
And Mrs. Groff?
Aye.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, then
We will
then
be
can
back
move
in
on
June
to,
with the final.
Yeah. Should have going back and forth a little bit.
And you're
here.
gonna, is this the posting, correct? You're gonna
Sorry.
post it?
She's posted.
You're posting it?
Yes, yeah. Track repairs, how'd the bids go?
They came, and, excuse me, we had 3 or 4 bidders submit bids. Unfortunately, the low bidder, after having discussions with him, his price did not match the scope that was required by the bid documents. So by right, he had a mathematical error, and the contract documents allow him to withdraw his bid. So that puts us at the second bidder, which is AT&T Sports. All the bidders are known contractors. This is what they do. They do track repairs, they do track installations. So these are all top-notch players in the field. In speaking with the potential low bidder, you could tell he was upset that they made an error on their part. They just didn't include a price for part of the scope. We did speak to him just to get an idea on what that cost would have been if he would have included that, and it was real close to where the second bidder was. So the third bidder, we're not sure what was going on with him, because there's quite a large spread between him and, the middle guy there. So, when we estimated this, or our consultant estimated this last fall, obviously, that was before fuel costs have risen and everything else has happened, and prices have gone up extremely. So, what we're seeing is the impact of all that. So, unfortunately, if we reject the bids and go out to bid it again, I think all we're gonna do is see the numbers go up even higher. So the recommendation after talking with Brian Bingaman with Turf Track and Court would be to recommend it, to go with the AT&T Sports. And the work would be done this summer and ready for the fall season.
How far is what we had projected?
We were what, 355? 355,
This is what,
411.
411.
Yeah.
Any questions?
How confident are we in the schedule?
They're fine. They have the manpower, they have the materials, they can make this happen.
So it won't impact any fall sports?
No, should not impact any fall sports.
If there are no concerns, we got that bit, accepted tonight, right? So I need a motion to accept the track bid recommendation.
I motion to accept the track bid nominee.
Second.
Have a roll call vote, please.
Mr. Dillman?
Aye.
Mr. Gensel?
Aye.
Mr. Hurst?
Aye.
Dr. Martin?
Aye.
Ms. Trowbridge?
Aye.
Mr. Benigno?
Aye.
Mr. Talley?
Aye.
Mrs. Kapka?
Aye.
And Mrs. Groff?
Aye. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much.
Did that hurt, Mike?
It did hurt.
I knew that was gonna sting you when I had it earlier.
Waited a little bit lower.
Well, I just keep reminding myself, this was money spent now.
It is.
As opposed to a lot more money spent later. It's not gonna get better. It's not gonna get better. Amusement tax, is that what we're talking about next?
Tax collector.
Tax collector. Oh, we'll do them both.
So Mrs. Groff had actually asked us to just give a little bit of a description of these two things. So I'll try the tax collector first, and then I'll let Adele do the amusement tax. So the tax collector appointment resolution, if you think back to February, one of the items that was on the agenda that we brought to you was what was called the deputization. So November elections last year, new tax collectors got elected by each of the 3 municipalities within the Conestoga Valley School District. When those elected tax collectors get seated in January, they basically said they're not interested in collecting the taxes for the municipalities. The municipalities then turned their tax collection over to the county. So the county treasurer would have done it. In our case, going back, I don't even know how many years, we collected the tax for our taxes, and the municipalities did their own. So we've always sort of been separated that way. When that happened, then we went to, if you remember, I had deputization agreements that Mr. Frankhauser had given us that we took to the county, and the county treasurer's office then basically turned the school district's collection back to us. So now it sits in our lap, and it's our decision whether we want to collect it here within the office or whether we want to have somebody do it for us. When I first got here, we had a number of years where we collected the tax, and we actually had taxpayers walk in here to the office. Prior to that, for earned income, so this is all real estate, earned income, the Lancaster County Tax Collection Bureau, out of a relatively recent state law, brought a tax collection board together for earned income purposes. And there are places actually in the state, Lebanon County happens to be one of them, where they use that same organization and that same model to collect the real estate tax. And so we had been talking about that at the Tax Collection Bureau, and Conestoga Valley was actually in 2017 the first school to use the TCB for real estate collection. Their office is right over in Greenfield, so it's kind of nice for us because it's almost like you're coming into the district, you're just going in there instead of here. And we have a lockbox situation set up with Fulton Bank, so that was another option for our taxpayers as well. So we put all of that in place. So this appointment resolution basically takes that ownership that we have, and it's our choice to say we're going to have the Tax Collection Bureau do it for us. Again, we've done that the last 5 or 6 years, so it's not a change, but it is convoluted process to get to where we are, so we thought we'd just explain it to you. Any questions about that? Nope, okay, then I'll let Adele do amusement tax.
Well, we're also very fortunate in Lancaster County that our TCB is as efficient as they are.
It's a really good process.
And some
It
counties,
works
they
really well.
cannot use their county collection bureau because there's too much lost in administrative costs.
Yeah, it is a good process, works out well, so, yeah. Okay, so amusement taxes, if my research is correct, back in 1981, there was legislation passed that allowed school districts in Pennsylvania to begin assessing an amusement tax. And Conestoga Valley is about one out of 30 school districts in the state that actually did implement an amusement tax. An amusement tax is levied on revenues that businesses will generate from recreational and theatrical type performances, also bowling alleys, golf courses, amusement parks, obviously, and other theater type productions. So in 1998, legislation was passed limiting the amount of amusement tax revenue that school districts could collect. And for us, it was based on what we had received in revenue the previous year, $348,867.50, but I don't know. It's just ingrained into my brain these days anymore. So anyway, our amusement tax rate was set at 5% back then. So obviously over the last 20 plus years, the amusement tax base kind of grew. So what we do is we've been lowering our amusement tax rate so that we're not over collecting. We're trying to get it to a rate where it's pretty close to that $348,000. So the percentage that's really been working for quite a few years now has been a rate of 2%. And we assess that to, we've got about 15 to 20 businesses in our area that are subject to the amusement tax, and that's just in the East Lampeter Township. We don't have amusement tax collection in Upper Lake Hawk or West Earl. So it's just East Lampeter Township. And when we do if the 2% does generate more amusement tax than the $348,000 at the end of the year, we reconcile it all and then reimburse the businesses for their overpayments.
Refund.
Yes, refund them. So we bring this to you every year. We look at it. We look at our projections. Do we need to make any changes or not? And right now, we're recommending a 2% rate for 22-23.
The idea is that we never want to go back to them and tell them they owe us more.
Right.
And they have every right to know about what their tax expense will be for their business, so.
Yes.
Have we had to reimburse very often, or are we getting pretty close?
Every year we're reimbursing, but we're pretty close.
Small amounts.
Yeah, we're over a little bit, and technically, let's say we reduce the rate substantially because we want to get it down, and if we under-collected, we can't go back and assess them more tax because we established the rate at whatever that was. So that's why we kind of keep landing on 2%. It just seems like the most equitable rate.
For those who wonder why we don't have more ways to collect taxes, there's one time they gave it to us and then they took it back.
Why only one township? Just out of curiosity. You said it's only the one township.
I'm not sure 100%, Mark, but I think what happened was East Lampeter Township, now they're not, East Lampeter Township is not subject to this amusement tax rate issue like we are because they're a municipality. They can charge 5%, but if the other districts didn't implement an amusement tax way back in the 1980s, then we can't piggyback on that.
So it all is based on that date.
I believe so, yes.
They were probably the township that had that activity back then.
Yeah, yes.
By the time the other ones may have thought about it,
it's too late.
It was probably too late.
So if you wanted to open an amusement park and you want to avoid that 2%, you would pick a different township.
Yes.
Just keep that in mind for future thought.
Do you have to approve this?
Yes.
All right.
Both of them.
I will accept the motion to approve the amusement tax proposal.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion to approve the amusement tax proposal and a second. We take a roll call, please.
Mr. Gensel?
Aye.
Mr. Hurst?
Aye.
Dr. Martin?
Aye.
Ms. Trowbridge?
Aye.
Mr. Benigno?
Aye.
Mr. Talley? Mrs. Capco?
Aye.
Mr. Dillman?
Aye.
Mrs. Groff?
Aye. thank you.
And the resolution for the tax collector as well.
Is that a two-parter too?
Yeah.
Okay, then
I move that we approve the resolution for tax collector.
Second.
Mr. Hurst.
Aye.
Dr. Martin.
Aye.
Ms. Trowbridge.
Aye.
Mr. Benigno.
Aye.
Mr. Talley.
Aye.
Ms. Kafka.
Aye.
Mr. Tillman.
Aye.
Mr. Gensel.
Aye.
Mrs. Crawl.
finished, right?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, and I appreciate it. I just felt that new board members would have no idea how we got to where we were.
Happy to
And
do it.
many of us have heard the same thing every year, and get to the point where we really didn't need the refresher, but,
It's always good.
yeah, it
Absolutely.
never hurts.
Nope.
Okay, on the information agenda, are there any,
We have one treasurer.
oh, yes. I'm sorry, I forgot you.
That's all right.
I had asked Mr. Benigno to give us a advisement as to whether or not we should keep the same method we have been for board treasurer, and he has come to us with what advice?
And we recommend that Ms. Fletcher continue to be treasurer.
Yeah, because new board members, we're not allowed to have a board treasurer as a board member. We have several choices. We've been using the chief financial officer, and that's a one-year term, so it is an election. As an election, I don't know if we have to have a motion for an election, but we'll pretend we do, just to be safe. Okay, so I have a motion to appoint her, not elect her.
I move we appoint Mrs. Fletcher to full treasurer.
Second.
Here we go again.
Dr. Martin.
Aye.
Ms. Trowbridge.
Aye.
Mr. Benigno. Mr. Talley.
Aye.
Mrs. Kafka.
Aye.
Mr. Tillman.
Aye.
Mr. Gensel.
Aye.
Mr. Hurst.
Aye.
Mrs. Crawl.
Aye. Okay, now we're finished with all the action items. Are there any questions or input on the financial and operations report? Are there any on the curriculum and instruction report? Dr. Z, are there any federal funds?
Tonight, Madam President.
Okay. Board reports, the only one I have right now, I think, is the IU, the PSBA report. The IU moved its meeting to later in the month, and LCA hasn't met yet. The only thing I would add to mine is, I can't remember if I put it on last month's or not, but PDE is talking about creating a resource of online courses. And it reminds me when they say, I'm here to help you and I'm from the government. Well, when they say we're here to help you and we're from PDE, beware. But they, it's going to be not required, but recommended courses for online curriculum. And you also notice they're having elections and they talk about the region we're in. We are in the region that will have to elect a representative. I have no idea what those other regions are they're listing in there, the central, middle, and eastern, central, and west. They must have changed their bylaws because I've heard nothing about it, and they don't post their bylaws, so if there's anyone else we have to check that, I'll look it up, but other than that, I don't think there's anything too new on that report. CTC report, Mr. Hurst, do you have anything?
Not tonight.
Any other committees? How about CVEF?
I haven't heard from anything from them lately.
Okay.
I haven't got an email from Jerry, right? That's,
I get copies and you're on it.
when's the last one you've gotten?
I guess right before their grant committee met.
I got one about a meeting in March, that was the last one that I received.
That may have been it. Construction team update. I know you had a meeting the other day, right?
We did, last Monday before the board meeting. I'll give a brief update.
Yeah, would you please, and then
Yeah.
we'll have everyone.
So, starting first with the new middle school, obviously the team is pushing very hard to get it opened by the beginning of next school year. Where it stands right now in terms of a schedule outlook, date has crept into the very end of July, with the classroom area looking to be finished sometime around that time frame, and then moving throughout the rest of the building throughout August. The one area that might still be a little bit in question is the cafeteria. So the team is obviously looking at plans you know, if that does come reality, that that's not ready for the start of school, what we might do in that case. But obviously Phyllis and the team are working very hard to keep a close eye on the schedule, offering potential solutions when issues do arise. So obviously being very proactive to try to keep everything on schedule to be ready at the end of August at the latest.
Mr. Spencer, you have anything to add to that?
And I know, no, I think that covers everything. Also, the elevator is scheduled to be completed. I was very concerned about the elevator, and Phyllis made sure she pointed that out, because we need that to move all the stuff into the classroom, so.
Oh, I
The
thought you
elevator's
just wouldn't
been
have to
my
walk
thing.
up the steps yourself.
Well, that helps. Yeah, I do like to ride. So, no, I think, it's as best as we can hope for at the moment.
Okay, well, we'll keep our fingers crossed.
And the gymnasium may also.
Gymnasium
will stretch, yeah.
Right. And then a real brief update on the subsequent construction projects. So if you recall, we rejected the bids on the current middle school renovation and Leola. We are looking to get bid documents together, revised bid documents together for the middle school renovation. The team took a look at what scope could be reduced, still retaining the flavor of the renovation, but trying to obviously bring costs down. So revamping some of the construction documents slightly to try to bring costs more in line, and looking to re-advertise the middle school at the beginning of next month with fully the intent of then having that renovation project run for about 12 months and that being ready for the subsequent school year. And then handle Leola as a separate renovation, so breaking those two projects apart. And what that does is allow us to move out of Leola and complete that construction without it being occupied. And hopefully that leads to cost savings on that project as well.
And what's the time gap between when you have the new bid documents ready and when bids are due?
It's a month.
It's about a month.
A month.
And please jump in or correct me if I misspoke on anything.
We really
All right.
appreciate both of you serving on this committee.
So where's Leola going to go if it's unoccupied?
So I don't know that it's finalized, but what has been discussed is actually, and jump in here as well, but Old Smoketown moving to the renovated middle school, Leola moving to Old Smoketown, and then back after it's renovated. And the entire reason, well, not the entire, one of the reasons being is that's probably easiest on the Leola folks, so that they don't have to run through 2 cycles of punch list items as they're in school.
And everything goes faster in an empty building.
It does.
Considerably faster, yes.
Would you like to add
So,
anything?
well, yeah, a couple details, just to give you a clearer picture on the middle school. There's a couple components that are all but complete. There's detail work to be done with that, and they are the floor toppings and the interior CMU. They're all but completed, but what the key there is that kicks loose all of the Area A and Area B finishes. So things are starting to arrive. I mean, flooring's on its way, ceramic tiles there and being installed. Casework has arrived on the job. Installation has started there. Painting, ceiling materials has started to arrive on the job. Some of the work has already started, the grid work has already started. So those 2 big components out of the way, they can really concentrate on the finishes. And in good coordination, it should go through fairly well on the 3-story building and the admin area, which is Area B.
All the mechanicals are in and functioning well.
Mechanicals are in place. There was actually another point there that I had highlighted and forgot to mention was all the rooftop units and mechanical pieces are in place. They're actually on the roof and in place, and the final piping is connecting to the systems is happening now. The electrical component as well along the way, that the power is to the building, and should be energized. They have to fill in some panel guts, but should be energized probably in a couple weeks here.
I guess if you have finishings coming in, you wanna make sure everything behind it is in place before you do that. Good, glad to see we're finally moving that far. Any other concerns or questions? We appreciate your comment, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks.
We are at the point where, again, there's an opportunity to address the board. Is there anyone that would like to at this point? If not, then we'll move on to board initiatives or announcements. Any board members have any concerns? If not, then you know what the dates are for the next meetings. And we are then prepared to, with a motion, adjourn for legal and personnel reasons.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any no's or abstentions? If not, we are